Texas A&M beat LSU last night, 38-23. This was not the game to be live blogging, live tweeting, which a lot of you love to do, and it is your constitutional right to do it. And when I become college football commissioner, I will fight for you to maintain that right, but I will advise you not to do it because games like this will expose you. Games like this get to the end, and it's a 4 Chalai Classic on a scale of 1 to 5, and it was very, very entertaining to watch, but you get to the end of it, and what is there? Well, there's what I'm doing right now. There's a lot of talk, and some of it's bluster, and some of it's substantive. I think a lot of it's bluster on this game. Just got to be real with you, because there's a lot of talk about how A&M dominated this game on the line of scrimmage, and they did. So that part's notwithstanding to what I'm about to say. But a lot of people I have heard in the aftermath of this game talk about what a dominant performance it was. They speak in these absolutes, and they put such finality on the outcome as if it was never in doubt and it was so definitive. And I just want to ask those people, what did you sound like with 8:17 to go in the third quarter? Because that's when LSU was up by 10. And if you were watching this game like I was, you may have found yourself saying, ooh, they're close. LSU's close to breaking this thing open. One more catch and run like they've had so far, they may break this game open. Guys, they play these things 4 quarters for a reason. They're not over at halftime. They're not over at the end of the third quarter. If they were, it'd be a much different sport. These games are long. You get multiple possessions. If you got a really good coaching staff, they got time to adjust, which I'm about to get into because A&M's got one, and they did. But maybe I was the only one. But I swear to you, I got home from the Vandy game in time to watch this whole thing. I'm sitting there watching the game, and I have said out loud, the words came out of my mouth multiple times, LSU is about one more play away. Garrett Nussmeier, the one getting crapped on today, Garrett Nussmeier is about one more play away from breaking this. But they didn't. They didn't. And then Texas A&M, I thought, put on a coaching clinic last night. I mean, everyone's heaping praise on Mike Elko. Me too. Let me tell you specifically why. We came into this thing, and I said, I actually picked LSU to win the game. And I said, I'm doing that because I don't know that I could trust Connor Wigman. And I was right. And he didn't earn the trust. Mike Elko had to pull the trigger, not at halftime. He let him go back out for the third quarter, but he did not earn the trust. Wigman was not good last night. The Missouri game becomes more and more of a mirage with each passing week, and so they made the move to Marcel Reed. Now, I mentioned that Missouri game, and I want to go back to it for a second. Mike Elko did not start Marcel Reed in the Missouri game. He started Connor Wigman. Wigman came back and had the game of his life and looks like a genius, but I remember after that game, Elko made very specific mention of Marcel Reed, talked about how good a teammate he had been and how bought in he was and how non-argumentative he had been with the decision to go back to Wigman. And it's important that you note that because it sounded like coach speak at the time. And he was dead serious, and he understood what he had at the quarterback position. He understands his team, and he understood down the road we're going to need him again. Well, as it turns out, they needed him last night. So he kept him dialed in. And you got to credit Marcel Reed for staying dialed in, too. No amount of coaching can keep you dialed in if you're a turd. And he's not. He's a great kid, so he stayed dialed in. And then number 2, you got a new offensive coordinator there. Everybody's new. It's a new coaching staff. But you got Colin Klein. And on one hand, you want your starter to come through, but your starter doesn't come through. Insert Marcel Reed. And for Colin Klein, that's in his wheelhouse. Because then you got the mobile threat, and it doesn't matter that he didn't throw for a lot because he ran 9 times for 62 yards and 3 touchdowns to close this game out. They just broke the game open. Didn't flinch. They just broke the game open. You got to be, I'm telling you, you got to be really good. You got to be cohesive. You got to be really good developmentally, fundamentally, but also as a staff. You got to be really good for that kind of stuff to be happening. Just live bullets flying. You're playing a really good team. They had you on the ropes in the first quarter. In the first half, they had you on the ropes. Into the third quarter, they got a double-digit lead on you. And then your starter's out, not for injury, but by your choice. You call, and you put in your backup. And then it's just, you do it like you practiced it, because you have. You just didn't plan on that specific sequence of events. And that leads me to my third point here, and that is Jay Bateman's defense bought him time, kept him in it. And the second half, this is LSU's drive chart. Don't be sitting there talking about this. If you're an LSU fan, I know how you look at your team. You can look at your team in a vacuum. Like the other guy's not even there. It was all up to us, and we didn't come through. Well, you didn't come through because A&M's defense had a lot to say about it in the second half. Your drive chart, LSU's drive chart, punt, interception, turnover on downs, interception, touchdown, interception, turnover on downs. A&M generated 17 points off interceptions in the second half. It was a coaching clinic. And I say those words intentionally because I haven't attached them to Texas A&M football in quite a while. And I'm going to get back to that in a second because a lot of folks are talking about Mike Elko right now. They should be talking about him. It's not the end of anything. It's not the beginning of anything. They are where they have afforded themselves the opportunity to be right now, and that's in position to contend for the SEC championship. They can contend for a playoff spot. This is still a flawed team. This is still a team that is vulnerable to the right opponent. I think they'll face one this Saturday. So I'm not about to make any kind of claims that I'm going to have to backspace over in 6 days. I'm not doing that tonight. What I'm saying about Elko, and I'll say it in just a second because I want to address LSU, will extend if they get beat by 30 this Saturday. Now, I called LSU the biggest wild card team in college football. Everything you could ever need. Exhibit A, B, C, D, and E was on display last night. They came out of the gate, and that's an extremely tough place to play. And they're up, and they had explosive play after explosive play in the first half. What I hoped was there, though, was not there. What I hoped was there was the ground game that they took to Arkansas last week. They outrushed Arkansas. That was a surprise to me. And I think that staff thought that they had gone a pretty good ways in self-scouting and assessing and making adjustments, development, figuring things out, in other words. And I think this was a huge setback for them, just dead wrong. I mean, if you thought they had turned the corner there, dead wrong. Had 24 yards rushing. Garrett Nussmeier's interceptions are not the padlock stat to me here. He had 3 picks. I mean, they were egregious turnovers. But I'm telling you, the padlock stat is 242 to 24 because that was the rushing edge that A&M had. And I can't tell you for sure, I can't prove an alternate scenario is a reality or not, but I'd be willing to bet if that run game was a little more balanced, if that offense was a little more balanced, you may not be looking at a 3 in the interception column. Here is Brian Kelly sharing his thoughts afterwards.
Look, you can't make a living with 33 yards rushing, and we've got to help Garrett out, quite frankly. We've got to give him a more balanced offense. And, he can't be that guy that's got to throw for 365 yards. There has to be more balance within the offense. And, we can go all night here and gang up on Garrett Nussmeier if we want, right? But the reality of it is we've got to put him in a better situation and get more balance within the offense.
I mean, I think Brian Kelly's right. He knows it. Any football-minded person, especially on that coaching staff, they know it. You kind of put your guy in an unfair position because Garrett Nussmeier is not Joe Burrow right now. So you can't look at him and say, Garrett, we can't do this, or that, but that's all right. We got you. Just go bail us out. And whether he does or he doesn't, it's not fair to him. So I'm not sitting here representing him tonight. I'm not his agent or anything like that, but I watched it last night, and everyone's praising the kid in the first half, as they should have been. And then the same people are deleting tweets and then trashing him in the second half. And I'm looking at it like, yes, the turnovers are egregious. Yeah, I'm convinced on the last one he threw that the dude in front of him blocked his vision of the guy behind him. But that's a whole nother conversation. Anyway, what do we think we're watching here? Jim Nagy of the Senior Bowl, he was tweeting about him last night, talking about what kind of NFL prospect Nussmeier is. And I retweeted it. I said, hey, that's what makes him the biggest wild card in the game right now. That's before he started turning the ball over. So no one said anything, predictably. And then he started turning the ball over. And then some of them came at me and said, oh, you might want to delete this. I don't need to delete anything. Everything Jim said about him in the first half is still true. Notice, I didn't call him a slam dunk or a lock first rounder. You're calling him a wild card as an asset, as a concept. Garrett Nussmeier, playoff caliber quarterback. That's a wild card concept. Garrett Nussmeier, first-round quarterback. That's a wild card as a concept, meaning the gelatin has not gelled yet. It's still kind of liquid, but all the ingredients seem to be there. But I'm telling you, one of the ingredients you're going to have for a guy like that, because he's not a transcendent talent, he's just a really good talent, is you're going to have what Brian Kelly just talked about. You're going to have somewhat of a balanced offense, and Kelly got into the defense a lot too. Honestly, their defense, by last year's standard, is still leaps and bounds better. And I thought on the whole, they gave a good enough effort to where they should have been able to win in a complimentary fashion. But I do want to address a couple of things. I don't think any differently of LSU right now. I still think they're a big wild card team. The difference is margin for error is gone. And while I'm at it, can we just address the nonsense in the room? Colin, show me the Cannell tweet. It's so redundant. Let's address the nonsense. Show me the Cannell tweet is one of the most redundant phrases on this show, because I don't know how many times I've said it. Here is Daniel Cannell, hurt, emotionally scarred after Florida State's 1-7 start, lashing out at anything that moves last night. LSU falls in a tough road game, and Daniel Jeremetrius Cannell says LSU eliminated. LSU's not eliminated, no matter what Danny Cannell says. LSU's eliminated from having margin for error, but what are we really talking about here? This is why you cannot trust most expansionists, because the same ones that bang the drum for college football playoff expansion, why? Because they said it would make more games matter, are the first ones eliminating you when you've lost a second game. You're telling me LSU, with 2 losses, if they beat Bama, Florida, Vandy, and Oklahoma, will not be in the playoff? Will not be in what playoff? They wouldn't be in my playoff. They'll be in your playoff. So Danny Cannell's not to be trusted on this sort of thing. And I do radio with him every Monday morning, I think at about 7:30. So Dusty Dvorak is usually just an innocent bystander in all this. If anyone at SiriusXM is listening, feel free to license this clip and just play it as my lead-in tomorrow morning. A&M's still alive. They just have no margin for error. Where are the perfect teams out there? It's like I once upon a time listened to Milton Friedman talk about economics and all the people talking about how, man, this stuff's so evil. And he said, well, where are the angels in the society you're talking about? Well, I say that about college football. Anytime you try and eliminate someone from the playoffs in, let me check the phone, October, I ask, where are these perfect teams that are going to fill out spots 1 through 12? That's eliminating LSU. LSU's not eliminated from anything. Texas A&M, though. I'm not getting choked up because I'm crying and my voice is just weak. Texas A&M, the 2024 team, has a lot to play for. Texas A&M, the 2024 team, still has flaws. They're imperfect just like anyone else out there. They're going to go on the road in an extremely tough place against a rested South Carolina team this Saturday night. I'm telling you, a faceplant is only 1 week away in this sport, in this league in particular. But Texas A&M, the Mike Elko-led program, there's very little doubt about. Whatever this team does the rest of the way, they may be in Atlanta or they may lose 2 or 3 games between now and December. I don't care. Truthfully, I didn't care at the beginning of the season. I already had bought fully into Mike Elko. I think a lot of people are buying into him now. Texas A&M has always been a hire away. It's been that simple and that difficult. And I have been shouted out from every mountaintop on this show when I've talked about how elite the program can be and how elite the caliber of job that it is. I am right about that. I'm just telling you, I am very convicted in what Texas A&M football can be. Then people started calling me an A&M homer because the one thing about people who grow up in rural Georgia is we tend to be A&M homers. It's a real secret Aggie stronghold there in Harris County, Georgia. It's not that. It's just I have the ability to talk to people in the know about it, but number 2, I just look at it and use common sense. Everything that you need to win is there. There's not a single box they don't check. The only thing that's barren is the trophy case. And the trophy case is barren not because there is a magical poison that exists in the well water in College Station. It's because they've hired wrong. And now they hired right. And what's about to happen is they're going to reap the benefit of that. And they'll be a perennial title contender in the very near future. The recruiting profile of the program will adjust. I don't just mean they'll get higher rated players. Truthfully, the rating of the player they get may not change all that much. The performance level will change a lot because the evaluation and developmental pieces that this staff has, the previous one didn't, and the kind of guy they're going to take is just a little 20, 30 degree course correction than the kind of guy the previous staff did. I think there are a lot of misnomers about what the problems were with Jimbo Fisher's Texas A&M. Folks think they went and got a bunch of really good players. They just didn't develop them. Well, what if I told you the players they got were overrated to begin with? And they didn't do that bad a job coaching them up. It's just you were kind of looking at an illusion to begin with some of those classes. So that's gone. That's the past. This is the now. This is the future. Mike Elko is wasn't a sexy hire. I think it got really covered up by the Kalen DeBoer hire. Elko is the real deal, man. Elko's the real deal. He's not going to really shout into microphones. He's not going to show up with a really colorful suit at media days that garners the headlines. But the biggest headline grabber is winning football games. He will do that. I am saying this, and I'll say it if they get beat by 30 Saturday. Because this year, you only have so much control over what you are in year 1. But year 2, 3, 4, and beyond, you better get used to the name Mike Elko. This take is just independent of what they will be the rest of the way this season. They are a 3.5-point favorite for the record, according to FanDuel, this Saturday at South Carolina. And by the way, I know a lot of you are watching maybe a clip of this that don't normally watch the live show, and a lot of you are watching the live show. Do me a favor, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We do this free. It's free of charge. We do it 3 times a week, and we're happy you're with us. We don't really talk anything else. It's just college football around here.